I think that
It's in the works.
the compare, or what is the
Female duty
I
to a
technically
man.
never got
yeah,
to finish.
I'm kind of, I wouldn't say old school because they'll tear me apart. That's why I feel like you have to
Please
meet
say old school and
But-
go deep on that.
It's because you look at me, I have tattoos, whatever, so I'm not a virgin, wait until marriage, so you wouldn't call me a traditional woman. But that's why I found a man and of the same level of traditional, if you will. But like for me, I think the woman's side of men's chivalry is being a homemaker. I do agree with that. I enjoy cleaning up the house. I enjoy doing my laundry for us. I enjoy making our meals. But at that same token, since I am still working, we're both working, if there is a day that I don't feel like cooking or doing one of those things, he has no problem picking up that slack. But I feel like overall, on the day-to-day, it is my job, whereas his job
100%.
is to provide me with protection and other things that you listed.
She is absolutely the nurturer in our relationship, but when she was sick with the flu, I wasn't going to leave her to nurture herself.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
So,
that's
no,
definitely-
I know. So I can
It's-
appreciate that.
I like if it's 90%
your-
of the time, sure, but I would hope he's there for me, doesn't mind doing those duties if it's, for a reason, not just because I feel like fucking off and I feel like doing nothing, but yeah.
Would you consider your man to be the leader in the relationship?
Yes.
Yeah. That's an interesting one, too.
I
Would you-
wouldn't want to be with a man who's not the leader in the
Actually,
relationship.
before I pose that question,
I like
I
being by myself.
I want to let other people.
I was actually talking before when you were talking about women nowadays and like what their role is. I think you're gonna find like 3 different subsections of women, like women that are maintain that hyper femininity, that like find that masculine man, and they both like complement each other in terms of their gender roles. Then you're gonna have women kind of like Kiko, kind of like me, that like aspects of traditionalism and want to adopt those and can respect that and understand the balance between men and women. And then you're gonna have women that are like, nope, I'm an independent woman, I don't need no man. I think that's like where we're going. You're gonna have like 3 divisions of women, and I think that's actually in the beginning works of men too. Like that's happening. There's a men's movement right now. I mean, Red Pill movement, like Myra and Fresh and Fit, all of those big names. It's that we're there. I feel like we're on the precipice of like men also dividing and figuring out, hang on, do I have to fulfill this role as a chivalrous man, or
Yes.
can I?
And that I think that's a very, very scary proposition. 'Cause I
Yes.
think that could make it harder
Yes.
than it already is. I kind of like the fact that men have this expectation, and women are having to sort of figure out what the expectation is of them. I do not want to see there be a divide in men as well. I think that's going to spell out a lot of trouble because fundamentally, and you know this as a psychologist, right? We are very different, and a lot of times what women say that they are looking for, they are not actually looking for. And if men start to become more feminine and adopt those feminine roles,
We're screwed.
like women are not going, the women who think that they want to be the leaders and the masculine ones aren't going to be attracted to those men.
No, and I'm just going to say this right now. Every single couple that I know that have a relationship where the woman is the more dominant person in the relationship, it never works out. Every single couple that I've known to have that sort of dynamic has either broken up in a very messy divorce or something of that sort. I'm not saying that it can't work, but I don't think that it's the majority of those types of relationships that
let's
stay.
go around the table on that.
Sure.
Has anybody here, any of the women here, been more so the, as you would put it, the leader in the relationship, or the more dominant one? Is that the phrasing you used?
Yeah.
So any women here who have been kind of the leader or the dominant one in the relationship?
Drove me to hell, drove me crazy. I wanted to leave. It was horrible.
You
No.
raised your hand too? Anybody? Someone else raised their hand too, I think.
actually was.
Yeah. Just with yours really quick.
Sure.
It drove you to hell.
Yeah.
Now, was it because he was lacking in some way, or maybe it was a combination, but could it have also been like, oh, you perhaps in your past were more, you wanted to, or at least you thought you wanted to be that way?
I thought I wanted to be that way.
Okay.
I don't necessarily. I've had 3 monogamous relationships in my life. They were all so sweet, so kind, treated me like a princess. But essentially, the masculinity was lacking, like big. There was no leadership, there was no direction. I had to fulfill the nurturing role and then the planning role, and there was no establishment of like what our roles were. But at the time, I was like, fuck gender roles, like, whatever, like that's just lame anyways. Like we just need to, just work it out. And I really did not want to come to the conclusion that what I was actually looking for was not at all what I was taught that I actually wanted.
What's the question?
Yeah.
What's the question?
I can answer the question.
Or-
I don't think people would expect me to have been in a relationship where I was the dominant one. But I was in a relationship where there was a man that was more dominant than me who was the leader. And then I ended up getting a random career on social media that just kind of took off, and it shifted to this dynamic where I was making all of the decisions and I was handling the money, and it just it's not a positive situation to be in, and I just grew very resentful when I was the one left having to make all of those decisions. So that's why it didn't work out. It wasn't because he wasn't a good person. It was just when those roles are reversed, it just doesn't seem to work.
Two things. Actually, first, someone actually responded to one of your Q&As earlier, and you gave a really, really interesting response about the struggle between being a modern day woman versus being the type of woman who can like truly attract and retain a man. Like, how can you have a career? How can you pursue something, be independent until you have a man, protect yourself in case that man does something that makes you want to leave?
Yes.
And do you want to share kind of like what your thoughts on that were, sort of like the flipping the switch, that kind of thing?
We obviously are in a society where two people in the relationship do have to work in some situations. I mean, it's not possible for every single couple to have a stay-at-home mom and a housemaker, like a homemaker. It's just not possible nowadays. So I was saying, in those situations, the woman has to be able to come home and not be the boss babe anymore. She has to know how to turn that switch off for it to be able to work, because yes, there are women that have thriving careers, but if she knows how to flip that switch, then that's the way that it...
And something that you said the first thing she has to do is recognize that the things that help her be successful
Yes, are not attractive.
are often not the same things that will help you retain attraction from a man.
Yeah.
I think that's super important. And the other thing that I like to talk about with regards to me and her, because me and her, like, I think we would say that she would identify me as the leader of the relationship, but I'd be interested to hear your guys' take on what you think leadership is, because I think when people think about leadership, they think like a dictatorship, where it's like, do as I say. Leadership, if any of you have ever worked for or been around a good leader is the person who is really just willing to put their head on the line because no one else is willing to. They're the ambitious one. They're the one with you said planning. More so than planning, it's like, I have an idea of a risk that we can take. I have a path that I think we can get there. What do you think about this plan? And now it's on them. I do this with her all the time. We've talked about ways to potentially, grow her brand that I'm now a part of, right? And I got my own thing as well. But like, we've had to make some decisions about, what can we do? Do we have to cut back on certain things? Do we need to focus on certain content? Do we need to say no to brand deals in order to not like flood, feeds with just like products and make sure that like fans aren't going to be dissatisfied?
The brains
things
of
like
the
that,
operation.
right? Like there are like little decisions that you make, but if I offer up an idea like that, like, I'm not expecting her to be like, yes, sir. I'm expecting her to look at me and think to herself, like, what is, here are my concerns. What are your thoughts on those concerns, right?
Right.
I think that leadership is a much, much more nuanced thing than people give it credit for. So I'm wondering what you guys think about that and what you think about a man's leadership in a relationship.
Let's just come back to that a little bit.
You filthy animal.
Sorry, I'm